Coach now, Clay Helton at 7-3, 6 consecutive wins, none better than the last one. Coach, hey, as you've said for going on 2 months now, you get better every single game. What was the difference in this one, in that tough atmosphere against a great opponent?
Well, I think you said it. I thought all three phases went out and won the football game. It started defensively, stopping the number one rushing team in our conference and really holding them to 17 yards on the day, 0.6 a carry, and getting after an elite quarterback, not only in our conference but the nation, of getting him off his spot. 3 sacks in that game, getting them off the field, 6 of 17 on third down. Offensively, I thought we stayed on the field. This was a team that was giving up only 29% on third down efficiency. We go 7 of 13 on the day and really made some critical third down conversions in that first half to get that 17-6 lead. And then you look up, they pressured us so much more than we thought they would. They were a team that was about a 25% pressure team. They ended up being a 75% pressure team on the day. They really wanted to see what Sam was made of, what our offensive line was made of, and credit to the offensive line again. To put up with those pressures, only give 1 sack on the day, tremendous. And then Coach Baxter does it again. He comes up with a huge momentum field goal block that is basically a 10 points turnaround. They lose 3, and we take that block and end up going for a scoring drive and solidify the game.
Coach, I know you watch a ton of film preparing for these games, and you sort of guess to try to anticipate what's going to happen, how you guys match up. Of course, you can't determine that until the game starts. But when you look at the numbers and all the numbers that you talked about, did you think that this team could perform at that level and have such a dominating performance against a Washington team that looked invincible prior to you guys playing them?
Yeah, we knew that we were playing an excellent football team, and we knew it was going to be a hostile territory, but we had been just improving week in and week out and really had got to November and playing our best football and knew if we just did our job, we would be in the football game. Now, there would have to be some special plays made by some special players. Dory Jackson turns up and picks 2 interceptions off. I think of the catches that Juju made early on third down and then Darius makes late. Daniel Lamorta-Bebe stepping up again for us. There were just some big boy plays that were made in that game, and that's what you look for from special players in the biggest of games.
As you said, Washington's strategy seemed to be to find out what Sam Darnold was made out of on the big stage. They found out, and it's a lot of good. Here's a stat for you that I saw. Darnold was 11 of 12 on passes downfield, 10-plus yards down the field for 199 yards and 2 touchdowns. What does that stat tell you?
One of the things that I think he's doing a great job of, if you look at that breakdown also and watch the tape, is how he's creating once he leaves the pocket, how he's keeping plays alive, not just looking to run, but there were so many times that he was patient, he was poised, he felt the rush, but he kept his eyes downfield. I think of Darius's play in the back of the end zone, just buying time, finding an open receiver, and using his legs to create passes down the field rather than running. And I think that was a big stat, not only the accuracy downfield, but keeping his eyes downfield.
Yeah, not only the accuracy. The general consensus has become that arm strength is sort of overrated in quarterbacks. And I know there's other important qualities, but Sam's blessed with some great arm strength. Yeah. How important is it, especially when you get into a game where the windows are maybe a little bit tighter, and we saw him fit some balls in?
Yeah, you always go back to decision-making, timing, and accuracy as a quarterback, and part of timing is how fast it gets there.
Yeah.
Making a quick decision and getting it in a playmaker's hands as fast as humanly possible, and the velocity of the ball does help that. I mean, his arm strength and his core strength, he's one of those quarterbacks that really don't have to step into his throw. He's so powerful in his core and his arm strength that he gets away with that a lot of times, and thank goodness he had a good night, and a lot of it's due to that arm.
In Sam's case, it always seems like he's always in attack mode. That's what I like about him. And now you could tell the confidence, that Tyson and T and yourself have in him, that it's always go. I mean, it's, not reckless, but it's always on go mode. How much more has that changed over the course of the season? I mean, obviously there has been some movement, but now are you confident at any time? Because he got the ball with like a couple minutes left, and it was like, hey, let's go.
No, you can feel it, and that's a good observation, JJ, is, as we've grown as a team and Sam's grown as a quarterback, even as play caller, and with T, you look at it, and I even felt, we're right there before half. It's 2.5 minutes left, and we're like, all right, go score, let's go.
right.
And we got a 2-minute drive, we got to go. And you have that confidence in them to be able to drive the ball down, make correct decisions, and really. We're just trying to defeat the defensive scheme now than worrying about, okay, should we protect him? Just go. He's got it. Let's go play.
Well, we're talking a lot of offense, but we need to get into some defense. Really, standouts across the board. But the thing I thought was funny, even look at the stat sheet, and it says Stevie Tuikolovatu had 2 assisted tackles, and that's it. What was his actual effect on the game? Because I know it was a whole lot bigger than that.
It felt like when you watch the tape, he was 3 to 4 yards deep in the backfield every time. It didn't matter if it was run, it was pass.
He got some pass rush in there. I gave him credit after the game. He was harassing him.
I know. He was proud of himself. He goes, Coach, I'm normally a run stopper, but I was close to that quarterback. So did a great job in the interior. And again, for the second week in a row, I thought in the run game, Porter and Uchenna did an unbelievable job of setting the edges and filtering it back to the big men inside and the 2 inside linebackers. You never saw balls get outside of them. That everything filtered back in, and then the penetration is what killed it.
All right, plenty more to come with Coach Helton. Talk more defense, a little special teams, and then get into that showdown with UCLA Saturday, ESPN 7:30 at the Rose Bowl. It's rivalry week, folks, and you're listening to Trojans Live.
Trojans Live.
Back on Trojans Live, Jordan Moore, John Jackson, and the head coach, Clay Helton, coming off a fantastic victory over number 4 Washington. They won't be number 4 tomorrow. USC won't be number 20 anymore. Moving on up in those rankings on the strength of 6 consecutive victories. And part of it's been the pass rush. For every sack this football season, Keys Automotive Group will donate $500 to Children's Hospital Los Angeles. With 19 sacks this season, the donation total is currently at $9,500. Thank you to Keys Automotive Group. And speaking of that pass rush, you mentioned him before we went to break, but Porter Gustin's growth into being basically a terror in the pass rush over the last few games, to me, it's been a complete game changer. And when that game got one-dimensional, what kind of effect did he have on Washington?
We knew going into the game there was 2 phases we had to get. 1, stop the run, and 2, get to Jake. Yep. We had to create pressure, get him off his spot. They were such a great timing throwing team that we had to eliminate some timing throws. And you saw him having to dance around the pocket a bunch, and that a lot of that came from the edge pressure from Porter and Uchenna.
Coach, talk about this team and the ability to respond to adversity. That game was firmly in control, and it went from 17-6 to 17-13, and all of a sudden it became a game. And things. There were 2 slips by 2 players that are normally reliable. The ability for them to put that behind them and keep playing. Talk about how important that was for the team, and how much does that even help them grow even more to understand that they can get over things like that?
Yeah, it was a long flight back, and you had a lot of stuff you could think about. And one of the things that I took away from the game is how many lessons we've learned in this season. I mean, if there's one team that has faced some adversity and learned how to overcome things and be thick-skinned and tough-minded, this is a team that has. And we knew going in that it was going to be a heavyweight bout. We talked to the kids about, hey, not everything's going to be perfect. You're playing a really good football team. And we had been able to jump way ahead on some teams over those previous 5 games. And we knew it was going to go back and forth. And every time that they seemed to get a little bit closer, our guys just stepped up and made a big play. And that's what you want from your football team.
We're going to have Adoree Jackson on later in the show. And everyone knows what a unique athlete he is. But maybe you can explain a little bit more about what a unique person he is. And the example is, obviously he slips down. He gets beaten on that long touchdown pass. Not only does he not let it affect him and he comes back and gets the game-stealing pick, but a few hours later, he's posting the clip and just on his own social media and sort of just saying it happens. For somebody that I bet the people out there think, oh, he's like Deion Sanders, he's super cocky, and he has a ton of confidence, but he also seems to have a ton of humility.
He is one of the most humble people I've ever been around. Here's a guy that's a superstar, and prior to the game, he's sitting in his locker reading his Bible and goes out there in that game, and he wants to be on that stage. And not every play is perfect. Majority for him are.
Right.
But there was no question in my mind after that slip-up that he was going to come back with a huge play in the game. If anybody noticed, the next kickoff, he's going to get the kickoff, and it's about 5 yards deep.
Yeah, he was coming.
And it was,
He was coming.
I would have bet everything I owned it was coming out of the end zone. But I was like, well, here we go. I know he's going to make a big play, but ends up making a play that ends the ball game for us. And you knew he was going to do it. He's just a special kid.
But the one thing a lot of fans, don't notice, he had the slip. Yeah, they all noticed that. But he was matched up in man-to-man coverage against Ross, who was probably the most electric receiver you're going to find, maybe not in the conference, in the nation, and held him in check. I mean, usually those are battles the receivers usually win when they're one-on-one.
Yeah, Clancy did, I thought, a great job of matching him up on Ross, and it went tit for tat. I mean, Ross got a couple, but I think of the big plays down the field, and that was a huge part of this, and they only get one on the day, and they attempted a bunch, and just the closing speed Adoree has to be able to match up with a guy like that is just unique. We saw over and over in this conference how Ross had just absolutely run by guys, and so we wanted that matchup with Adoree, and it ended up being effective.
The other receiver, Pettis, came in with some pretty big numbers too, and Iman Marshall and company completely shut him down. And you know what? Some people have been hard coach on Biggie at times this season. I saw him respond a little bit today that I think he was reading some things about himself, but maybe an underrated performer of all the people we're talking about. No one really talked about him, but he sure held his side down.
If you look at why the pressure one was great pass rush, but two was coverage. And the matchups just fit us really well because you had speed on speed with Ross, and then you got a bigger receiver in Pettis that's a really strong individual, and you put your strongest corner on him, and physicality on physicality, and I really thought Iman played extremely well. I thought he won that matchup.
Again, and I'm going to keep complimenting him every week that it ends up being this way. The play calling, phenomenal, just kept everybody off balance. You were committed to the run early, for obvious reasons. But then when it came time to open it up, you were able to open it up. I mean, the balance again between the play calling, it's starting to get pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was really I told T in our staff meeting on Sunday how proud I was of him, because that was one of those games with as many pressures as we saw. You could have abandoned the run, but he didn't. Yeah. He went 36 runs to 33 passes, and it was one of those big boy games. It was Rojo puts in a tough 93 yards, 4 yards a carry. It felt like a pro football game, just tough run yards, and it set up some one-on-one opportunities. And you look up and you throw for 286, and a lot of it was because you committed yourself to staying balanced.
Are you happy to have UCLA this week? Because it is a sort of natural trap game coming off a big emotional win, but have to imagine it's easy to get up emotionally to play the Bruins.
Yeah, we've had blinders on, and it's the next game. That's the way we got to look at it. Last week was a big game because it was the one we had, and now you're playing UCLA, who's obviously this is a special game. It's a crosstown rivalry. I mean, we're so fortunate that Los Angeles have two very, very excellent schools, both academically and athletically, and we love to compete against each other, and it makes it for great college football fun. So you always get excited to be able to, whether it's in the Coliseum or the Rose Bowl. I mean, it's unique. It's one of the special rivalries that are out there in the history of college football.
The one thing when I look at UCLA, the record says they're really struggling, but when I look at them statistically, you don't see that. I mean, they're number one in the conference in pass defense efficiency, which means, and they've given up the least amount of touchdown passes as a defensive unit. What are you seeing from their team in terms of the things that they're doing well and what you're concerned about on Saturday?
Yeah, defensively they jump off the tape. I mean, really their secondary leads the way. I think they're giving up about 190 yards, which is staggering in this conference. And then they have a tremendous – we're going to probably face one of the better defensive ends that we've gone against in Tack McKinley. I think the kid's going to be playing on Sunday here very soon.
No question.
I mean, he's electric off the edge. And, and we know Jim. He's a great defensive coach. You're coming to the park. He's going to have a great defensive game plan. So it's going to be a great challenge. The backup quarterback has come in and done a good job. I mean, I look at what he did versus Utah with 70 passes on that day and really kept him in the game. It kept him in that game, and then, performs well at Oregon State last week with a big win. So we've got our hands full. We've got to do our job. It's the next game up, and it's a very big one for us.
There's always a lot of familiarity between the players, many of whom grow up together. In this case, there's some familiarity with the coaches. You know a couple of those guys on the offensive side, Kennedy Polamalu over there, Marcus Tuiasosopo over there. It seems like it's been their offense this year. What imprint have they tried to put on it and maybe adjusted as the season's gone on?
Yeah, I think they've done a good job identifying where their strengths are, and you look at what they're doing with the quarterback, and they're throwing the ball around the park right now, doing a nice job of it. You know, I've always thought Tui was a brilliant offensive-minded coach as far as with the pass game, and you got Kennedy Polamalu that's a run guru, and you know, I bet you that marriage is doing really good things for him. I've always had the utmost respect for both those guys. Anytime you work together, your family, so they're doing a good job over there, and really taking their personnel and creating opportunities not only for their wideouts but their tight ends. Nate Icy's doing a great job. So we got to do a fabulous job. It's another challenge for Clancy to step up against a bunch that can throw it around the park.
Well, with all that being said, you talk about the coaching and the relationships that you have. If there's any team that knows you, this team is going to know you. They're going to know everything from the checks to the audibles, the formations. They can probably help call plays with you as well. How much do you have? You know, how much is this week a situation of adjusting so they don't know what's coming because they are so familiar with what you do?
We know each other very well. You know, now Jim's been there for several years. I've been here for 7 years now, and we know offensively what each does. So I think it's going to be more about execution, and that's what I'm stressing with the players is fundamental execution of our plays and playing really clean football. You know, a lot of times it's not about if they know it or not, it's about executing. And I think about the game last year towards the end of the game of running the football and being able to, everybody knew it was coming, and being able to just execute our plays down the stretch, and that's what it's going to come down to again.
Execution on the field, passion in the stands, though. Yes. There will be plenty of that, no doubt, in the Rose Bowl.
In the press box, too.
And yes, I'll be harnessing JJ's energy throughout. JJ and I will go on. The pregame will start at 5:30 right here on the USC Radio Network. Game will kick off at 7:30 on ESPN, but I think there's tickets out there. You can probably get out to the Rose Bowl and enjoy the crosstown showdown.